Hey everybody, I'm Bill Vencil. This is Chords of Orion, and today I want to share with you 5 pieces of gear that I really regret buying. Let's get to work. I want to let you know that this is not meant to be a critique or criticism of any of these pieces of gear. As a matter of fact, they're all high quality pieces of gear. Some of you probably use them and really love them, and I want to hear from you in the comments about what you think and how you're using this gear. But let me share them with you, and I'll tell you some of the lessons I've learned in the process of regretting buying the pieces of gear. All right, so let's start with number 1. And this is the New Neighbor Expanse with the optional New Neighbor EXP unit. So I bought these fairly soon after I purchased the original New Neighbor Immerse Reverb. And oh, by the way, have I told you how much I love the New Neighbor Immerse? So I had high hopes for the New Neighbor Expanse, which is essentially a stereo modulation unit. You can do flanging and chorusing types of effects. And it does sound pretty good. And I decided to spring for this optional EXP unit, which, as you can see, connects with this cable. It's actually an Ethernet cable that allows you to hook up expression pedals and other things like that, and also control presets on the pedal. I thought, oh, that would be cool. But here's the thing. What I realized after I got it is that I really don't use chorus pedals all that much. And just the fact that I now own the Expanse didn't mean I was going to use it more often. The way I use delays and reverbs, it very rarely requires additional modulation pedals because there's already so much movement going on in the signal. So although I did a couple of videos, which I'll post a little bit in a moment, of this pedal, and it sounded great, I just found myself not using it because I really don't use this type of effect very often. And that's the lesson learned for this pedal of regret. Think about the pedals that you're buying and think about whether or not you're actually going to use them enough to make them worthwhile purchasing. Pedal of regret number 2 is the Boss SY300 guitar synthesizer. Again, I did a kind of a cool performance video of this. I'll link it in a minute. I was really excited to get this when I bought it because I am an historic guitar synthesizer player. I've owned many different types of guitar synthesizers, going all the way back to 1978, 79, and the original ARP Avatar. And when I saw this thing, I thought, oh, this is the answer to all of my guitar synthesizer lusts. I thought, man, this thing is going to sound great. And it actually does sound pretty good, but it just sounds pretty good. And if you're familiar with Boss effects, you probably know that Boss effects tend to have a characteristic sound. And the SY300 has a very characteristic Boss guitar synthesizer sound. I mean, it even sounds a little bit like my old GR300 historic synthesizer from the 1980s. And I found that as I played around with the presets and the settings, I really couldn't get it very far away from that basic Boss sound that's in the SY300, and I found it very limiting. And so after a few uses, this thing kind of went to a shelf and just sat there for many, many years. Now, what is my regret for buying this? Well, my main regret is that I realized this before the 45-day return period was up from the music retailer I bought this from. So I regret not sending this back. So what's the lesson here? If you get a piece of equipment and try it out and find that it's not everything you hoped for and more, send it back. Don't hang on to it. Send it back. All right, let's talk about gear of regret number 3. This is a little shocking, but it is the PRS 7 or SVN 7-string guitar. I was totally excited when this thing came out. And so I bought it thinking, man, I'm going to get into 7-string guitar. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with this guitar. It's well made. It sounds great. The setup's wonderful on it. I did a video or two. I'll link that in just a minute. But what I didn't have was a plan for how I was going to learn to play 7-string guitar. If you've ever tried to make the switch from 6 strings to 7 strings or 8 strings or maybe more, you know that these instruments with more than 6 strings, if you're going to play them right and play them well, they really should be approached as different instruments from a 6-string guitar. And I didn't have a plan. So, I played it a little bit and fooled around with it a little bit. But since I didn't have a plan for how I was going to learn how to use it, how I was going to incorporate it into my playing, after a few months, it just started sitting in the case. And I am so sorry to say this, but it's been sitting in the case or the gig bag ever since. So the lesson learned for me was, if the piece of gear or the instrument that you're getting is something that you don't know how to use, before you buy the thing, formulate a plan as to how you're going to learn how to either play or use the thing. All right, pedal of regret. This is a pedal. Number 4. The Electro Harmonix Pitchfork Plus. So I did a review of this. I did a performance video or two utilizing this pedal. I had a lot of nice things to say about it. I stand by everything that I said about it. But in the final analysis, I actually, just me speaking here, I actually prefer the original Pitchfork polyphonic pitch shifter. I've ended up using the original Pitchfork time after time after time after time. It's even on my pedal board at my feet right now, hooked up and ready to go with some other, recordings that I'm doing at this point. The Pitchfork Plus is a great pedal, but for me, it actually does too much. There are too many options. And because of that, I found that I didn't really view it as being better than the original. And this is the takeaway for me is, don't always assume that newer and bigger means better. here we are at the end of all things, and it's time for Gear of Regret number 5, and I know you're going to find this shocking. I regret purchasing the Fractal Audio FM9, and I don't want to regret buying this thing. I'm hoping that I can turn my regret into delight and joy. But as of right now, I regret buying this thing. This was not cheap. I think what did I pay for it? $1,700 USD, maybe somewhere around there. It was a pricey piece of gear. Not only that, at the point in time when I ordered it, there was like a 10-month waiting list. I got to the point where I had almost decided to cancel the pre-order or the order, take myself off the waiting list, and all of a sudden it shipped. And when it shipped, I was a little disappointed because I already had it in my mind that I was going to take that money that I had budgeted for this thing and direct it to another piece of gear. But, it shipped and I was like, all right, cool. This is going to be awesome. The Fractal Audio stuff, it's amazing gear. It's well built. It's high quality. It's updated a lot. The algorithms, all that good stuff. So I get this thing and I plug it in and start playing around with it, and it does. It sounds good. Maybe it even sounds great. However, what I discovered with this piece of gear is that it's not giving me anything else that I'm not already getting with my other multi-effects amp modeler / effects units. In particular, I purchased the Line 6 Helix LT for a lot less money than this. And I can get patches and sounds that I really, really like out of that unit. I can get the same sounds out of this unit too. But for my use as an ambient guitarist, I'm not finding that there's really much of an advantage to this unit. In fact, the editing software, I don't like it as much as the Line 6 editing software. When you take your USB cable, hook your multi-effects device up to your computer and start working with it. I actually like Line 6 a little bit better. I can build a patch faster and more efficiently than I can with this unit. Now, here's the thing. I know this is a really good piece of gear. I know this. In my heart of hearts, I know this. And I'm not ready to give up on it yet. I regret buying it, but I'm not ready to give up on it yet. So I've committed to myself. Self, you will work with this more through the fall of 2023 and try to find the killer sounds that this thing can do that none of the rest of your gear can do. I'm talking to myself now. So I know this is controversial because I know many of you out there either have this or another piece of Fractal audio gear and love it, or you want this because you think you will love it. So I'm happy to entertain any comments below about your experience with the Fractal audio gear. Just please be kind to an old man who regrets spending all the money on this piece of gear. All right, so those are 5 pieces of gear I regret buying. To be honest, I've got a lot of other gear that I regret buying too. And I think the big kind of meta lesson in all of this is don't assume that buying a new piece of gear is either going to make you better is going to radically change what you're doing as a musician, is going to be the killer piece of gear that's going to change everything for you, either in terms of sound or recording or whatever, or is going to provide capabilities that are beyond all imagination. There's actually no gear that actually can do that. There's only one piece of gear that can truly make things better for you as a musician. And that piece of gear is this sack of skin and bones and intellect and feel and emotion. It's you. You're the one. I'm the one. We're the ones who are ultimately going to make our music better. So I've got some other videos here. I've got a playlist of all of this stuff here for you. Hope you'll check them out. I'll catch all of you on the next video.